Hey, everybody. Can you believe it's March 30th already? Man, April's here. It's spring, and we're ready to rock and roll in the building industry. We've already been rock and rolling. It's going to get better. Hey, today, Building Wins Live. Randy, your host. We got a great guest today you're going to enjoy. Ben Wallace with Contractor Growth Systems. We're going to chat about how we help our contractors to get more leads. And obviously, that's pretty important to all of us, right? So he's coming up in just a minute, so don't go away. We'll be right back with Ben. Hey, Ben, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Randy. Thanks for having me on. How are you doing?
Oh, man, it's a pleasure to have you. Pleasure to have you, and I'm doing well. You know, I just thought about that that little intro. Can you believe it is like April, basically?
It's wild. I feel like I lost my track of time since last year, 2020, and everything that's taken place. And it feels like, this first quarter of the year, over a first quarter of the year, has flown by.
It has. It's just amazing how fast it's went. It seemed like it was like January, New Year's Eve, and football games and all that stuff. And no, spring has sprung all over the U.S., man. Good stuff.
You're right.
So
we're over here in Iowa, and it's finally warming up. We're finally getting some sunshine. Yesterday we tapped into the 70s, and so I'm enjoying the warmer weather.
So where in Iowa are you, Ben?
We're in Des Moines, Iowa.
Oh,
West Des Moines,
West Des Moines, right? Or East Des Moines?
Yep.
Des Moines.
West Des Moines. Yep, West Des Moines.
Yeah. I like that little town. Or not? It's not a big town, but it's not a bad sized town. I like Des Moines.
For sure.
Ben, before we
With perspective.
really roll into stuff, who is Ben Wallace? Give us who is Ben Wallace?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ben Wallace, I am born and raised here in Iowa, small town Iowa kid, and grew up an athlete. So really, if you were to define me as a person, I grew up an athlete, a competitor. I played, 4 sports in high school, went to college, played college football at the University of Northern Iowa. I used to weigh about 300 pounds, but lost a little bit of weight. But really, I'm a competitor at heart. And so after graduating, I immediately got into sales in the advertising world. I was actually selling full service advertising, direct mail to automotive dealers. So making like 120 calls a day to general managers at automotive dealerships across the United States. And I saw the power of advertising, but I saw really the power of digital marketing, digital advertising for these dealerships, and how it had so much of a bigger impact than the traditional forms of direct mail, radio, and TV. So I worked for an advertising agency, and then shortly after I started my own business. We started a marketing company, my wife and I. And at first, we were helping anybody and everybody with social media content, advertising, all these services. But what we realized, Randy, was there's so much content and so much overwhelm here today in 2020, 2021, that businesses need a clear path. They need a clear roadmap. And so that's what we try to develop, and that's where we're at today.
So and your wife is Kenzie, correct?
Yep.
Does she work with you in the business then?
Yes, she does.
Okay. I for some reason I wasn't aware that she worked with you. So that's awesome. Husband and wife team. That's good stuff.
Yeah, she's a major help. She's the glue on the back end, and she's been with me through it all. And so she's a major help for sure.
Nice. You just hit something. You talked about a clear roadmap, and I think that's so important, because I think it's easy as all of us adapt to more digital to augment what we do, because I'm in a transition point now back to some trade shows are starting or coming in the future, some more contact with customers and seeing customers, and more travel, so kind of hybriding that whole thing. But as we grow our digital game, the clear roadmap is kind of important, right? Because it's more than just, I'll post this funny thing, or I'll throw this little statement up. I mean, there needs to be some sort of plan behind this. No, or am I right?
You're exactly right. You need structure, you need strategy, you need really a roadmap, like I had said. And the reason this is it has been a big issue across the board, specifically in the contracting space. That's who we serve as home improvement contractors and blue collar business owners. But the biggest issue is when you have a smartphone, we all have these smartphones, right? And you have access to Google and YouTube and all these other content platforms. It's very easy to become overwhelmed with all the technology and all of the different things you could be doing as a business or a business owner. And what ends up happening is it's almost you either don't do anything, or it's like you're throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks. And without a strategy, you're going to have, you're going to lack results, you're going to lack predictability, and ultimately businesses need a reliable and predictable flow of new business in order to scale and grow the way they want to. But without that strategy, without a clear step-by-step plan, that's a major struggle for most businesses.
So a good buddy of mine and Wes's, Director Wes's, Eric Bamdis is up on the screen. Can you see that on your screen too, or no?
Yeah, I can pull the comments right here.
Yeah.
What's up, Eric? What's up, Eric?
Yeah. So he's asking about the Gary V model, posting content at volume every day. Volume, quality, combination thereof. What's your take on it? Thanks for the question, Eric. That's a great question.
Yeah, great question. I think obviously Gary V is the man. He knows what he's talking about. But at the typical business level, at a small business here in America, to take a contractor for example, posting a bunch of content to your small amount of followers, and with a platform like Facebook and Instagram, where maybe only 2 to 5% of your actual followers can see that content, it's not producing very many results. If you jump over to your typical business page with maybe 1,000 or 2,000 followers, look at the amount of engagement and the amount of likes that you see on a typical post. So I think organic content on a platform like Facebook and Instagram, it can be important for credibility or building authority or adding value, but that's after the fact that someone's heard about you when you've been in front of them through an ad or through a specific piece of content, however that's being placed in front of them. So I think that the model makes sense if you have a massive following, and again, there's a strategy behind it, but that strategy needs to be there. Great question.
Good. So the content that you work mostly with contractors, right? I mean, that's your base of business.
Absolutely.
Do you see the contractor type of business in what you would suggest that you do if they hire you as a client, or as a if they take you on, different than like my friend Eric that just popped up is working with in the pizza industry, the food industry. They supply bags and a great perfect crust liner for the boxes so that you get your pizza perfect every time. Different markets, right?
Yep, completely.
Do you see it differently with what he's doing, which is a much broader market, right? Because everybody every 330 million people in America have some sort of interest in pizza, right?
Absolutely.
Transversely, the amount of people that the contractor may be going to today is tremendously smaller. So does that affect how you would guide your client?
Absolutely. So the strategy is completely different per industry. That's why, like I mentioned in the beginning, we were serving anybody and everybody. But I quickly found out that every single business, every industry is different. You're talking about, a contractor who, let's say a remodeler, a kitchen and bathroom remodeler, for example, who sells a $50,000 to $100,000 kitchen remodel compared to someone selling pizza at, $10, $20 for a pizza. It's a completely different strategy, and one could be very foot traffic driven, driving traffic into a restaurant, and then one is generating appointments or consultations to start off that sales process for a higher ticket sale in the contracting space. So the platforms that you're advertising and you're creating content will remain the same, but the strategy behind that and the techniques that you're using to get in front of your ideal customers will definitely vary.
Okay. So as a as Contractor Growth Systems, here's a here's a question for you, I guess. The contractors listening, and any of the supplier customers, obviously they can get a hold of you at your website. I know you got a new website coming up, but what should they be prepared to discuss with you if they're coming as a novice from this? I know there's social media, I know there's Facebook and all this stuff, but I need to generate some leads. There's got to be helpful for you if they come to the table with some basic concepts, right? What do you need to know to help them?
For sure. So I'll start by saying, typically when a contractor were to come to me, or a business owner comes to me, they're looking for something. They've heard they need a new website, right? Or they heard they need to have an automated email follow-up system. They heard they need some piece of this step-by-step roadmap. And so what I have to do is really help them take a step back and look at the system or the strategy from a 30,000 foot view and say, okay, if we need a new website, let me ask you, are you clear on who is your dream customer? Who's your perfect customer? Have you defined who that individual is? Have you gotten clear on your message and your messaging? Because people don't buy, it might sound weird to most people, but people don't buy the best products or services. They buy the best, they buy from the company with the clearest message. So if you have two businesses, one website is, a bunch of text, doesn't really make sense, doesn't take you through a strategy. It talks a lot about the business. And then you have a website with a video that's welcoming the customer, speaking to their desired wants and aspirations, and taking them through a clear path. That company, even if they have a less quality product or service, will always win, especially in 2021. And so if they come to me and they have a specific need or want, I always redirect them back through context to our 9-step process. There's really 9 core elements when you strip away, all of the additional added fluff. So I redirect them back to that. And then what we do when they come to us is we have a roadmap session where we really audit the 9 steps to their current process and systems. And from there, we're able to put together a custom roadmap and help them get started along the path.
Okay. So you've got these 9 steps that are probably relatively universal, especially at least in our industry. But you probably tailor still, it sounds like, or customize that to the individual contractor, right? Because a home remodeling contractor, like you said, doing kitchens and baths, could be different than the metal roofing contractor,
Exactly.
But different than the installed window contractor, right? There's some differences. So it sounds like you're hybriding, which is an area that I enjoy, because I think everything's hybrid, or should be. It sounds like you're taking the basic 9 steps that make sense, and then you're customizing almost step by step to the specific contract. Am I reading that correctly?
Absolutely. Every single step has its own framework. And so every contractor that we work with, we go through these 9 steps completely custom to that contractor, to that business. And starting with the first step, which is really setting a clear target, setting their goal, whether it's annually, whether it's we're chunking it down from a 3-year target. We set that target because without having, a clear destination mapped out or at least written down and committed to, then you're just going to be heading off and driving off into randomness. And so the steps are all the same. We've taken all the certifications, went through all the courses, and it really comes down to these 9 steps. And so yes, the steps are the same, but it's completely custom to every contractor that we're working with.
Gotcha. So now, do you obviously, because we're living in a much more remote world than we used to, are you covering U.S. or you don't just stay in 4 counties around Des Moines, right? No. I mean, how far will you go? How far will you work? Will you work with anybody that's listening?
Yeah, we won't work with anybody that's listening, because there are specific qualifications that we can only work with a certain amount of contractors. So we do have specific qualification pieces to work with the contractor, but we do work throughout the United States. And so depending on the population, like if you're a very, very rural, live in the middle of nowhere business, I'd love to help you. But if there's not really a market to tap into, if there's not really a solid amount of volume for you to get in front of, it's gonna be much harder for us to generate the results that you may be looking for. Not to say that I can't help you, but obviously being in a more of a major metro market, you're gonna have a much larger population to tap into than someone living really in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, so, and I think that's important what you just said, because so you're not just looking to grab every guy that comes and get a retainer or however you work and toss more money in the bank account. You're looking to really take on people that if you don't feel you can help them, you're going to probably guide them to find somebody that can, right?
Yeah, I'll always point them in the right direction. I'm not going to leave you hanging, but if you're not an ideal fit for us, then I'll let you know and I'll point you in the right direction. There's definitely somewhere you can go to get help and to go where you want to go. I might just not be your person. So in order for me to really fulfill my mission and what I'm looking to accomplish, I have to be very clear about, just like I am with my contractors. The second step of our 9 steps is defining your customer. So just like I would with the contractor, I have to get very clear about who is my ideal customer, who do I want to serve, and then also who can I not serve, who would stop my ability to fulfill my mission or serve the amount of contractors that I could serve if I help that individual. So just like I do with my contractors and we get clear on that customer, I do that exact same, the exact same 9 steps myself.
Gotcha. So, Wes, our friend and my producer director, he likes to. He brought up a great point back a few weeks ago about seldom asked questions. We all know the frequently asked questions, right? What are 2 or 3 seldom asked questions that a contractor that's sitting there right now going, I don't know what I'm doing, but I need to do something. What are 2 or 3 or 4 things that he ought to look at right now to make a determination that I need to search out somebody like Ben and Kenzie, right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of questions I would ask. I would say first off, I would ask myself, if I was transparent, if I was completely honest, where am I at currently? Where am I at currently as far as how many jobs am I currently, taking on? How many customers do I have? How many leads am I looking at on a monthly basis? How is the quality of service that I'm providing my customers? I would take a very clear look at where I'm at currently, because from there you're able to say, I'm here and I'm here's my current situation and here's where I want to go. Then you're able to set that clear target. Now you know what the gap looks like. Now you've defined the gap, and now you can take something like this 9-step roadmap, or you can take a look at any type of a clear step-by-step system, and you can utilize that to bridge the gap from your current situation to ultimately what you're trying to do or where you're trying to go with your business. So I would ask myself, where am I at currently? Where am I trying to go? And what is it going to take to get there? And they might sound like 3 cliche questions, but those 3 questions, if you sit down and you get deep on those 3 questions, is going to give you a lot of clarity, and it's going to literally give you the exact gap that you have to, transfer over in order to hit that target of yours.
So it makes great sense. And so obviously some work is going to be involved on your client as well. It's not like this is going to be an easy deal and I'm going to hire Ben and Kenzie and just tell them all that's going on. And geez, I just need a bunch of leads and go start putting some roofing on, right? They're going to have to be invested and engaged in this process. It's probably as equally much as you are, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. I can only be the guide that can show you the 9 steps and take you along those 9 steps. And there's a lot of things that we have done for you services. We can do a lot of things for you. But at the end of the day, unless you are clear on your business model, on your customer, on your messaging, your market, then there's not a ton I can do for you. I can lay out the 9 steps, but if you don't have the right product or service offering, if you don't know who your customer is and you're not clear on your message, it's going to be very hard for me to generate you any results, even if I were to build out everything for you.
Right. So thought about, because a lot of this is with lead generation, does a contractor need to know what his conversion rate is before he starts working with you? Because I could foresee some guys may not really have even a grasp on that, and that's not a negative. They've just never been in that world, right?
Yeah.
How many leads do I need? What's my closing rate? What's my conversion rate, right? I mean, and I know a little bit about that, not tons, not like you, but one of my sons is involved in the installed sales metal roofing world, and they're all about, the conversion rates. They know exactly, right? It's almost like if I get X leads, I'm going to sell X. I know how much my marketing costs are. I know how much my cost per lead is, all those things. I mean, is that something, a two-part question, that they need to know that coming to you, or do you help them figure that out? And will they, at the end of the day, probably have to be able to figure that out as they move forward to be successful, with your program? I know it's a two-part question, but.
Yeah, that's super important. That's a great question. First part, that's really step 1 in our process. So even if you do think you know those numbers, we're going to go back over those numbers, because within step 1, when we define our target, what we're doing is we're saying, if this is where we're going, this is what we're going to generate. Let's just say this is what we're going to generate this year in annual revenue. Then we're going to break that number down all the way to how much do we need to invest in our marketing in order to hit that number. And so, you have to know somewhat what your conversion ratio is. And that's where a lot of overwhelm lies, Randy, because a lot of these contractors and business owners in general, they're getting leads from multiple sources. And so if you take the average contractor's main source of leads is typically referrals and word of mouth. And so if you look at your conversion rate on a referral, I mean, that's going to be probably 80, 90. That should be almost a home run. They're coming from their friend who just told them that you do an amazing work, and it should be almost a no-brainer for them. If you compare that lead to someone who just saw your ad on Facebook and came through your website, the conversion ratio is going to be much different. So you have to really be able to differentiate those things and take a look at all of your lead sources and really come up with that. What is our average conversion rate, or what is our average closing rate from lead to new job? And that can be really tough. And we get deep on that in step 1, because without knowing that number, it's going to be much, much harder to know what you need to spend and what you need to build in order to hit that ultimate target that you've set. And so, great question. That's super important.
No.
Did I answer both of your questions, or was there another piece of the question?
No, I think that was it, because so if they don't know, you're going to help them drill down and figure that out, because obviously that's that's an easy math question, right? I mean, at the end of the day, with a little bit of backroom bookwork, you can figure out what that is, right? The number's there.
Yeah.
Because I would think, we'll listen to you talk. If you don't know what that is, it's hard to know where you want to go if you don't know where you started, right?
Yeah, and you can almost prove your success mathematically if you were to chunk these numbers down. Again, it's dependent on your product or service offering, making sure there's a good product market fit. But once those things are taken care of and you know your message, then you can really chunk the numbers down. And if you say, my annual target is 5 million in revenue, you can break that down to, okay, if we divide that by 12, and obviously these numbers are going to be a little rough, but if you divide that by 12, that's what you need to hit in monthly revenue in order to attain that annual revenue target. Then what you can do is you can break that down and say, okay, if our monthly target is X, how many jobs, or sorry, what is our average job value? are we, like you said, is it a remodeling company doing $50,000 to $75,000 kitchen remodels, or is it a countertop fabricator whose average project or average job is about $3,000? Because then we know how many jobs do we need to generate on a monthly basis in order to hit that monthly target, which will get us to our annual target. And then we're able to chunk it down even further, and Randy, and say, listen, if this is how many jobs we need to hit our monthly target, how much do we need to spend in order to hit that amount of leads? And with our average closing ratio being, let's say, 35%, how many leads do we need to generate in order to hit that monthly target? So we have a whole calculator and system and worksheet that we work through in our first step in order to get extremely clear on those numbers and break those down all the way to, if our average cost per lead is, our average spend per lead is X, what do we need to spend monthly in order to hit those leads that we need to generate to hit the monthly number? I know it sounds like a lot, but we have a simplified framework and worksheet we work through with our contractors to get to that number.
No, that makes perfect sense to me. I have just a little bit of background in that area, sort of in the periphery.
A little bit, yeah.
What you're talking about makes sense to me. So the reality is, with like with anything, garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you put the right information in, good, bad, or ugly, because I think if you don't start there, then you're fooling yourself right out of the gates, right? But if you put the right information in, you can at least, well, nothing's guaranteed. You can mathematically determine that, all things being equal, all things happen in place, I'm going to be able to get here simply by doing X, right? Because if I do X equals Y, divide by the square root of whatever, we can do all kind of math stuff, right? But it all starts by here and working your way backwards.
Yeah, it's really what I like to give a metaphor. It's really like having a GPS for your business. Like if you were to drive from Los Angeles to New York and I were to spin you around 10 times in the middle of nowhere outside of Los Angeles and say, hey, drive me to New York with no technology, no map, probably not going to end up there. But the reason this is step one for us is getting clear on the target and chunking that down is because you're setting the GPS for your business, and there might be some roadblocks and some detours along the way, but that's where you're headed. And then once that's clear, Randy, obviously that's when the work begins. You need a system in place. You need a process. You need to get clear on your sales process. There's some other things that go into that, but the first step is getting extremely clear on those numbers.
Awesome. So, and I know you're going to come back for an added wins. We're going to drill down on a couple things that I made some notes, but as is usual, the time flies quickly.
Wow.
Take the last couple, 3-4 minutes here, and what haven't we touched on that you'd like to talk about that either would maybe cause somebody to want to call you up, or just as a public service announcement, if you will, what can my folks do to get more in tune with the world that we exist in today?
For sure.
The world according to Ben. That's what we'll call this.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I had said, with all the tech overwhelm, with all the softwares and all the things you could be doing, really the biggest piece of advice I can give you is to really go on almost an information diet. Once you know your step-by-step process and you're clear on, here's the steps I need to accomplish in order to generate the outcome that I'm looking to generate, I would highly recommend going on an information diet, because once you get started, it's very easy as a business owner to see a shiny object or a newer and better thing you could be doing to generate your result, but you haven't even laid the foundations yet. So number one is to really get clear on what that step-by-step path is to get to your desired result, but then go on an information diet and just implement what your step-by-step plan. Don't look for other things you could be doing, because it's very easy to get sidetracked. But then just a real quick tip for everybody watching, as you had mentioned, that's Contractor Growth System below. We're making some changes to our website right now, currently as well. But if you were to look at your current website, whether you're a contractor, no matter what type of business you're in, if you're watching this replay, there's really three questions that you have to answer for your customer within 7 seconds on your website, or they'll leave, or they'll literally start daydreaming on you. And so the first question you have to answer is, what do you offer? Your customer needs to know in under 8 seconds, what do you offer when they hit your website? So you can answer that quickly in a customer-centric headline on your website. Then you need to answer the question for them, how is that going to make my life better? How is it going to make your customer's life better? So you can answer that in a quick sub-headline. How does your product or service make your customer's life better? It's not about us, it's about the customer. And then the very last question you have to answer in under 8 seconds is, how do I get it? How do I simply do business with you? And that comes through a very clear and compelling direct call to action. So answering those 3 questions, what do I offer? How does it make my life better? And how do I get it for your customers is going to dramatically increase your conversion rate on your website, which is a big deal in 2021 for all businesses. I don't care what industry you're in. So I feel like I'd leave you on that tip, and that would help a lot of your viewers, Randy.
That is very good. I just made some rough notes. I feel like I might have to pay you to be on my show, because I think that was worth the price of admission.
Well, I'd be glad to help you at any time, free of charge, Randy. You're my man. So
I know. Well, no, that's good stuff. Well, Ben, I know you're going to stay on, and we're going to come back and do a little recorded chit chat on a couple things. But thank you for being on. I appreciate it. Been looking forward to this conversation. You've become a good friend over the last year, and I just enjoy watching what you do, my man.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you big time for having me on, Randy. It's been a pleasure. Looking forward to the added wins, and we'll see you guys next time.
You got it, buddy. All right. There we got it. Ben Wallace, Contractor Growth Systems. That's some great information there. And if you can use any help in that world, I'd reach out to Ben and Kenzie. Hey, there's Kenzie right there. The Ben and Kenzie show. I love the whole idea of the husband and wife thing, so reach out to them if you get a chance. If you didn't get a note here or jot a note down and want to get with them, let me know. I'll get you in contact with them. Be worth your time to at least investigate if you think you need some help, which we all need help in this world. I think we're going back to some normalcy as what people think about. And I know in my world, we're going to go back to some travel. I've got some travel scheduled, looking forward to that. But the whole virtual social media thing is here to stay. And it's a tremendous augmenter to what we do, whether we're old school road warriors or new. So people like Ben and Kenzie can really help you out. So I appreciate Ben being on today. So that is it for this week. Just one show this week, no special editions. But we do have an added winner we're going to do after this, and look for that later in the week. Next week, got another great guest coming on, 2 of them actually, Megan and Valerie with, there they are. They're going to be on next week, and they run an operation out of Dayton, Ohio. I believe it's Dayton. And really they manage associations, and they manage several associations that I'm involved with, like the National Frame Builders Association, or NFBA, the Buckeye Frame Builders Association, which is the Ohio chapter of the National Association, and some other that we'll talk about next week. So we're going to talk about associations, the value, what they bring to the table, why we should be involved, and upcoming trade shows, and just what 2021 looks like from the world of associations. So these are 2 great ladies. You're going to love this conversation. So that'll be next week, 12 noon Eastern on Building Wins Live. So until next week, remember, you get one go around. So live it, love it, and own it. Make it your best day ever. Cheers, y'all.